We I guess the best way to talk about art, we have so much information, recently updated videos on our website where we just um, went through our demands, videos, content, correspondence with the administration. So you can see all of this at Anti-Racist Coalition BC.wordpress.com. So much information there, but to give a sense of who ARC is, it's really a question of how we came together. So as James just said, we've done so much organizing, but the organizing is almost considered extracurricular based on we all have formal positions at Brooklyn College, but the organizing has really just become an intentional effort of the extra labor that we do all the time, especially as Black faculty, faculty of color. We just have so many multiple roles. And in these multiple roles, we do this beyond the call of duty because we find, conditions of racism and white supremacy at Brooklyn College totally unacceptable. And the fact that we came together this summer in the midst of all these different things going on in society was really aggravated by administration who continued to get lip service after years and years of us trying to address these issues individually. And now that we've come together collectively, it's been an issue for them in dealing with us, recognizing that we have these common demands that they can no longer divide and sort and give attention or ignore people at their will. So we've actually been pushing against the administration's, their investment in a hierarchy that's rooted in white supremacy. And we're really trying to compel them to understand that to actually deal with racism and to actually have an anti-racist agenda, you actually have to deal with the people who've been dealing with racism on the ground, faculty, staff, and students every day for years. These are conversations that we never stop having. They didn't start this summer, but they came together this summer because we realized that we can't allow them to keep, giving lip service and, placating things that are really, in our sense, dire. And the student said just recently that you make priorities, even when you don't have funding, you make things priorities even when you don't have funding. I think Crystal could speak more to this.
Yeah, Black faculty and staff has been fighting racism on this campus since 1971. So this is decades and decades of work that has been building up. In terms of funding, Black faculty and staff, as part of our extracurricular activities of trying to make safe spaces for students, staff, and faculty who are people of color and Black on this campus, we have been doing a lot of fundraising, and we do a lot of it by ourselves from our own pockets. And if the university were to make our goals a priority for the campus or for the university in general, it would make the campus a lot more hospitable, and it would make it Black affirming, which will be affirming to everyone. Everything that helps the most neediest of us on this campus will help everyone from the bottom up. Daniel, as a student, how have you felt that working with ARC, how has that helped you?
So at the Anti-Racist Coalition in Brooklyn College, us coming together was basically the way of addressing these issues.
Work in Brooklyn College has been a space for us to grow together, but also address many of the issues that we experienced individually, but understanding them in a more holistic sense that helps us see how we can solve these issues together. Because as Crystal said, BFS has been doing this work since 1971, and personally, the Puerto Rican Alliance has also been constantly doing this since its inception in 1968. So this really is an issue of the unaddressed history of racism that Brooklyn College, but overall CUNY have. And just, it's our way of saying we're tired, and this is how we're going to begin creating long-lasting and meaningful change. But I also want to open up to everybody here for you all to have a chance to speak about how our demands specifically are anti-racist, but how these demands are different from what the school is now proposing as the solution, which in many ways is just the work we've been doing being slowly co-opted into a more institutionalized understanding of what is good for their optics and not good for the community, which is what we are centering.
So our demands and suggestions for solutions joins a call for change that's happening at public and private educational institutions across the United States and even at other CUNYs, where we see the stakeholders, faculty, staff, students, and alumni, and community members weighing in on the changes that they would like to see to make our institution a place where all feel welcome. We're also interested in having the campus look like the diverse neighborhood in which it is situated, and having the reputation of our college among diverse communities be one that is, we'll say, positive.
Yeah, I also, as an adjunct, and ARC has been such an important space for me and sort of been this new, what Prudence is just talking about expanding the sort of stakeholders that are represented in the actual organizing and in the development of the solutions for for anti-racism on campus. So for me, that's been just I think that's one of the key differences between what we're trying to do here and the administration's approach, because I think what we're pushing for and what seems to not really be getting through is a truly democratic model of structure, right? Where so many different points of view can be validated and hold the same legitimacy and break the institutional barriers that that institutions impose. And so, yeah, I'll say that.
Prudence, you gotta unmute.
Were there
Sorry.
other members want to speak?
Yeah. Prudence, go ahead.
So one of the things that we've been grappling with this summer is having an imagination to engage in anti-racist work. One of the questions that we've been thinking about is what is the danger of not having imagination or creativity to deal with this moment and move to a sort of progressive strategy for change?
Yeah, I think our back and forth with the administration really brings this up, because we have, from the statements that Crystal, Lawrence, and Danielle had talked about, ARC came together and had a holistic set of 6 demands. We've been saying from the beginning, this is not a buffet, you can't pick and choose, but we have this holistic, as drawing on what Anthony was saying as well, that we are a group of students, of staff, and of faculty, and we're trying to take into account all of our various precarities. And we recognize, I think part of the problem is with our back and forth with the administration is seeing that if we're not agreeing on the problem, then we're not going to have the same solutions. So there's a sense in which so much of our ARC materials has just been in defining racism. What do we mean by racism? Why are we always emphasizing material conditions? We're always emphasizing that our understanding of white supremacy goes beyond hate, and it goes beyond these things that are easier to target and are more about an institutionalized culture of whiteness that is not singularly to CUNY. It's endemic to all public higher education, but CUNY serves a particular population, and so it's particularly these paradoxes and are particularly heightened in our context. When we recognize that it's actually the system itself that's creating these divisions that we're working against, we actually have to find new and creative ways to actually dismantle that. Otherwise, we end up reproducing the same structures of oppression that we're trying to fight in the first place.
Yeah, and I think just to reinforce what Ria is saying, the danger of not having an imagination is that we're just reproducing these established sort of mechanisms of diversity and inclusion that reinforce whiteness rather than sort of thinking outside of those norms and privileges. And our administration is really trying to manage the moment in ways that, rather than engaging with us in a thoughtful way, rather than talking to us and working with us and seeing that their incredible faculty, staff, and students are the strength of Brooklyn College, and we are so committed to this. But they're not engaging us in that way with that kind of respect. And so that's super disappointing. But I think we're fighting it. And the thing about racist austerity is that its sort of most destructive power is that it's trying to convince us that there is no other way. So we're trying to join together in ARC to think otherwise.
And to add on to that, I mean, when we discuss who ARC is everyone at Brooklyn College who wants to imagine a Black life affirming campus, right? So we welcome everyone who shares an analysis of, white supremacy at core of, what we're trying to struggle against. And we have working groups for each demand. You can sign up on our website. You can become as involved as much as you want to, but we're talking about a struggle, as Daniel Crystal said, that goes back to the 60s and 70s. And we're going to continue this. This is not something that's just in response to the Black Lives Matter movement, but it's something that the administration needs to know is very much a part of the everyday working conditions that we find deplorable. And if they really care about racism on campus, that's a priority. And it's not something that they could just treat as something that will go away. And I think that's the power of ARC. We're trying to create a space for everyone to come in, be heard. And when we talk about our demands, we're trying to bring a whole community together to really focus on anti-racism. And anti-racism is connected to all forms of oppression if we have the proper analysis. One more time, our website is the Anti-Racist Coalition bc.wordpress.com. All of our information in terms of how to, do this work with us, more information about our demands, videos, correspondence with the administration, all of it can be accessed. One thing that we emphasize is transparency. So much of what the administration does is done based on lack of information or making people feel empowered because they don't know what's going on. We want people to know what's going on with everything that we do and every way in which we're trying to engage the administration.
Thank you all so much. And I guess I wanted to just wrap up by asking you about something that I know you've pushed a lot of us within the union about, right? Which is to try to think a little bit more intersectionally. Naomi and others have used the phrase, racial austerity or racialized austerity. Can you take us out with a soundbite, not too much pressure, of how it is that either labor unions in general or the PSC in particular, needs to progress itself as an institution, whether that's in terms of representation or analysis, as Professor Johnson put it, about what it means to be a labor organization in this moment.
I guess I could speak to that. A soundbite that I always say is racism is a poor working condition. And it is like Black lung, like other working conditions, racism can lead to poor health outcomes as well as a number of other things. So if we can push the union to see that racism is a poor working condition, then fighting racism is part of the union's job.
Thank you, Crystal. And thank you very much, ARC, for being here today. It's been a pleasure to have you here and to work with you all and being in the struggle with you. I think while the ARC folks filter out of the room and our Brooklyn College PSC Strike Authorization Working Group filters in, it's an appropriate metaphor because in fact, these working groups have been working very much in tandem with one another. Lots of folks in the one group have been working closely involved with the other to the point where they're not actually distinct groups. And I think in the transition, one thing that I would just want to say is for folks watching, the stream, some of the issues that were just raised by the most recent guests will be revisited in a couple of segments later this evening. So for example, at 9:30, there's a 20-minute segment in which Professor Alex Vitale and Professor Carla Shedd speak about NYPD, the NYPD budget, safety on campuses and the connections there. So tune in at 9:30 if you're interested in those issues. And ARC has raised those issues in a very pointed way on our campus. And then as well, at 20 minutes after 10 this evening, there are a couple of speakers from the Association of Black Faculty and Staff at the CUNY-wide level. So check back in later today if you're interested in those issues. Thanks again, ARC folks. And I believe we have assembled in the room now representatives from a working group that began to coalesce really as soon as the cuts were announced to the Brooklyn College budget and slashed sections in late May. A number of committees formed, including a committee around strike authorization, and they've been doing tremendous organizing and outreach in the Brooklyn College community. We're fortunate that many of them were available, taking a break from teaching, their first day of classes, and from organizing, which you have never seen a fiercer group of organizers. So get ready, buckle in, and prepare to be inspired by the strike authorization working group at Brooklyn College. Folks, I just turned the floor over to you. Let us know what you've been working on and how you came into existence, please.
Thanks, James. Lots to live up to in that introduction. But I think we have been working really hard this summer. It's been really cool to see. So I joined the Strike Authorization Committee when it was, my name's Adam Bangzer. I'm an adjunct lecturer in the English department at Brooklyn College. I joined the Strike Authorization Committee back in late May when it was formed. And first, I just want to speak to why this committee was formed, right? Strike authorization sounds like an intense phrase to use, but I think it's important to recognize that a lot of other avenues have been traveled down and not a lot of results have happened because of that, right? The union has lobbied, our union has lobbied, demonstrated, filed suits, gone on car caravans, written petitions, letters, but CUNY funding just continues to be cut. Students are not getting the education and support they need and deserve, right? So it might be strange to talk about a strike authorization while we're not in a contract dispute, right? But we really think that a strike authorization vote is about bargaining for the common good and asking for the CUNY that we think our students and faculty deserve, right? So that means actually having a much bigger tent of demands and things we're thinking about as a committee, right? Something we've been working on is a kind of working document. This document doesn't have a certain name. It's not a resolution yet or a statement of purpose. It's a working document, which I think is really cool. It's an ongoing thing. And I just want to read a couple of parts of this working document because I think it goes to show the intellectual effort and labor that's been put into the work this summer and really what we've been thinking, what a strike authorization, what it means to organize towards a strike authorization vote, right? So one thing we have talked about in this document we've been using is that, first of all, we're not a Black Life Affirming institution, right? So you just heard a presentation from the ARC. Those demands are in our strike authorization document, right? So we're trying to have the biggest tent possible. What does it mean to make demands that are bigger than the demands that have already been made? Well, it means not just asking for people who have been fired to be hired back or laid off or not hired back, whatever term you'd like to use. Not just asking for people's health insurance to be reinstated, not just asking for course caps to go back down to what they once were, right? But asking for more than that to give our students and the city the university deserves, right? So that means things like thinking about eliminating tuition, which didn't exist in CUNY for the first 130 years, right? I just want to read a few of these demands here. Things like hiring full-time faculty members at a mass scale in order to reduce class sizes. Things like hiring support staff at a huge mass scale, mental health support, educational support, everything we possibly need, right? Raising the wages of CUNY's lowest paid employees across all titles, including raising adjunct wages to a minimum of $7,000 a course, right? Dedicating funds for developing critical pedagogies, materials, and trainings for anti-racist instruction on all CUNY campuses, right? Investing in our libraries, renewing the actual infrastructure of CUNY today. I taught some freshman composition courses today, and I said to the freshmen, you're not in Brooklyn College right now, and maybe you've never been there, but most likely if you were in Boylan Hall, the bathroom you were in would not have been fully functional. And I think that's really where to start, right? Is that the infrastructure in both a literal and a metaphorical sense of our university is being actively dismantled. And this crisis is being used as an opportunity in order to further impose austerity. So as a community, as a strike authorization committee and community, we've been meeting to think about what we're doing, right? The key thing I want to emphasize here too is that this is an ongoing effort. We've been meeting almost weekly this summer, which has been great. This document has so many comments on it. I wish you could see the Google Doc, right? It's full of comments and thoughts. And I think we're looking to really continue organizing around these ideas because we think that essentially this is the necessary next step. There's been lots of talk, but if talk worked, it might have worked already. So we think now is the time to act. And maybe to talk a little bit more about the kind of ongoing nature of this activity and what's been going on at campuses, we can hear maybe a little bit from, I think, Derek on that. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Derek Levici. I'm an adjunct in anthropology at Brooklyn College. And yes, so how do we save CUNY from divestment? How do we bargain for the common good and make sure that our demands are met? The short answer and the very long answer is we need to organize every department and every workplace in CUNY. Unions with an active rank and file membership win. We have seen this with teachers throughout the United States. And the basis of this organizing is the one-on-one conversation between workers. At Brooklyn College, a number of us have been phone banking twice a week for months, mainly listening to members about their concerns regarding job security and workplace safety, but also getting folks involved in organizing towards escalating actions both on campus and CUNY-wide. These organizing conversations work. Look at the strides our chapter has made this summer as part of the Brooklyn College Anti-Race Coalition. We pulled off an action in 3 days with over 300 participants on the ground and online. And there's no doubt that this is due to the groundwork many talented rank and file colleagues laid through organizing. More important than calling members of other departments and workplaces, though, is organizing within our own department and setting up organizing committees. We did this in anthropology in April. I believe it is why we were able to push against some of the cuts and larger class sizes our chair was being told to make. Organizing committees not only build connections between workers, but are a way to communicate concerns across titles. No department is the same, so it's important to get that granular workplace perspective for us to fight as a union. Most importantly, there's no one better than yourself to bring your colleagues into the struggle against austerity, and there's no one better than yourself to articulate what the common good looks like in your own workplace and classroom. Reach out to your campus's staff organizer if you're interested in organizing within your department or workplace, but most importantly, reach out to your colleagues. We collectively are the union, and we are a militant union when we ourselves are militant, and we are a strong union when we are organized. And I'll turn it over to some people who are now going to explain why we want to get a strike authorization vote going.
Hi, everybody. Greetings, PSC CUNY colleagues. My name is Joseph Enton, and I've been teaching at Brooklyn College since 2003, and I'm a tenured faculty member. And I'm just going to follow up on what my brilliant colleagues have said with a quick statement about strike authorization. There are many reasons why I, as a full-time faculty member, a tenured faculty member, support a call for strike authorization. Because the austerity being inflicted on our students and our BIPOC colleagues is racist and must be contested. Because we have tried everything else, as Adam was saying, and despite the valiant work of our union and our intrepid allies in the legislature and the community, the cuts keep coming. But today I want to call for strike authorization because our colleagues are being fired and losing their health insurance in the midst of this pandemic, and because they have been suffering grotesquely exploitative conditions for decades. The adjuncts at Brooklyn I know are some of the most talented, devoted, and creative teachers, writers, artists, scholars, and unionists at CUNY. And when they are not being thrown into the street, they are holding up the university with their labor. As a tenured professor, I know that adjunct labor is our labor. Adjuncts teach the same students and the same classes we do. And the treatment of adjuncts tells us what the university and the people who fund it ultimately think about us, all of us, and our students. We are expendable. We do not rate. But we know our students and colleagues deserve better. And we know it can be otherwise, as it was during the Great Depression when 3 CUNY campuses were built, and now when New York billionaires are amassing riches faster than anyone can count. We have seen the power of educational strikes in recent years. It is time for us to stand together and do whatever it takes to win the university we and our students dream about. Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Kelsey.
All right. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kelsey Chatlosh. I'm an adjunct in the anthropology department at Brooklyn College. And I'm also still a PhD student at the Graduate Center, also in anthropology. So I'm going to talk a little bit as well about why I support the strike authorization vote, and also how we can think about austerity in relation to racism, and also how austerity is anti-Black in particular. So at the heart of the underfunding and exploited labor in academia, and here, focusing at CUNY in particular, is the devaluation of Black lives, Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color, as well as working class people. The job precarity and layoffs of underpaid adjuncts, like myself, are fundamentally tied to this devaluation. It's all connected. We can't really separate these things. We can also see this devaluation in the treatment of staff and librarians, many of whom are women, people of color, and women of color in particular, who were the last of our union to be allowed to work from home when campuses were already established as unsafe due to the growing spread of the virus. And as I'm sure a lot of folks have seen, CUNY has been unfortunately known for having the largest number of deaths of any university system in the United States. I believe that number was counted for as of June of this year. Due to the virus. And of course, we can also see this devaluation expressed in CUNY's treatment of its own students, who campus presidents love to brag are racially diverse, but don't show that support in actual material ways in the concrete funding of student services and campus infrastructures, and the increasing and then continue to increase costs of tuition and student fees. And so as the student-led organizing collective Free CUNY so often foregrounds, CUNY used to be free until 1976. And that was the first year that the majority of the incoming class were students of color. And that, of course, is no coincidence. Budgets are political documents, and the decisions that are made with those documents are express political will. It doesn't have to be this way. And in fact, CUNY actually did used to be free. I support the strike authorization vote because my only hope to fight against all of these connected issues is mass mobilization across students, faculty, and staff, as well as larger community members and folks in the neighborhoods around campuses in particular. We have power as a union. The PSC is about 30,000 members strong, and we are a force to be reckoned with. If we can mobilize our union members and get organized towards a vote for strike authorization and then a potential action, we can make real changes happen on a broad scale. Austerity measures of defunding and getting public services, including CUNY, are intended to drive us apart, competing for limited resources. To fight collectively, we need to get to know each other better. We need to get to know what these issues are across differences of race, class, and gender, students, professors, and staff alike. We need each other, and our movements are going to advance through critique and getting to know each other better. And so a question that the Anti-Racist Coalition at Brooklyn College posed in their demands was, what would a Black life affirming campus look like? And so kind of expanding on this question, as well as the question that Free CUNY has posed about what would a Free CUNY look like, we're asking, what would the campus of your dreams be like? So if you could think ideal, right? What would the campus of your dreams, what would the CUNY of your dreams look like? What would it feel like? What would the campus be like concretely? What would the respect and pay for professors, staff, and other workers be like? What would the student experience be like? And so if we can think about what our dreams are for CUNY and kind of look towards a better horizon, that gives us, kind of a motivation for what to build towards, and also kind of a point of dialogue between each other to try to work towards this together. CUNY doesn't have to be austere. Austerity is a political choice, and it doesn't need to be this way. And so to that question of what would the CUNY of your dreams be like, we want to hear from you, as well as your students, their families, and anyone who has any kind of relationship with CUNY as a worker, as a student, as an alumni. And so we're asking that you respond to our survey, which is available at tinyurl.com/dreamcuny. Again, that's tinyurl.com/dreamcuny. And we're also asking folks that they share online what their dreams for CUNY would be like, using the hashtag DreamCUNY. And also we encourage folks to tag the New York Governor Cuomo and the CUNY Chancellor Matos, who are people in power that have the ability to make political decisions to change these budgets and fully fund CUNY. And we also invite you to learn more about this campaign to Dream CUNY, as well as find full lesson plans that professors can engage their students at. And I just used those this morning and they work great, at tinyurl.com/dreamcuny together. Again, that's tinyurl.com/dreamcuny together. And so just to close out, this is what bargaining for the common good looks like. And this is an approach that I think we can win. Thanks all.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. And thank you everyone who just spoke from the Strike Authorization Working Group at Brooklyn College. Tremendous work that you've put in. I have a lot of questions for you all, but we'll do it in the next meeting. As folks can see who have been watching, the greatest casualty of austerity, right, is the way that it erodes our own political imagination and our sense of community. And I think you can hear in the ARC coalition and in our working groups, the effort to restore that sense of possibility and that sense of community. Stay tuned, because the next segment, folks, is going to be people who have been doing this for a while now. The retirees chapter, which is one of the most active chapters in the PSC,